Last April, in patch 11.1.5, Blizzard released the Cooldown Manager. And this was their first addition to the game in the war against add-ons. To be honest, I was pretty stoked to see it, but what we got was clunky, bare bones, and really barely usable, causing 99% of the players to still use weak auras. But in the coming patch of 11.2.5, Blizzard is adding some improvements, and today we're going to break down what those changes are, testing it to see if it's actually good now, and asking, can we finally uninstall weak auras? So here's the current state of the Cooldown Manager. There's 4 areas to track information in: essential cooldowns, utility cooldowns, tracked buffs, and tracked bars. They work like the other action bars in the UI. You have all the standard orientation stuff as you do with the other action bars. You can move them around, resize them, change the direction that they show in, and how many columns they have. But that's really just standard UI stuff, which for an add-on replacement, way too limited. There is absolutely no customization for the actual cooldowns and 0 advanced tracking. And depending upon the class you play, will depend upon how much stuff is tracked and how crazy your screen is. Here's 3 examples of the differences between classes. As a Beastmaster Hunter, you only have 6 essential cooldowns, but 15 utility cooldowns. 15 of them. As a Preservation Evoker, it's even worse. You have over 14 essential cooldowns, including 12 utility cooldowns. There's just way too much stuff on this screen. And a Death Knight is kind of in the middle of everything. The good news is that it's becoming better. And in 11.2.5, we finally have a way to customize what goes where. So to start, the Cooldown Manager is broken into 2 main areas: spells and buffs. Now the names are a little bit misleading, but I'm going to go through and explain the sections here. Spells are where all of our major cooldowns are. These are things that actually have a cooldown time listed on the tooltip. It also includes spells that have charges like Death and Decay or Death's Advance, and any spell that is tied to a resource. It's broken down into 2 sections: essential cooldowns and utility cooldowns. And right now, the only difference between the 2 sections is that they're on 2 different bars, and one bar is smaller than the other. The buff section is where you're going to track any of your major buffs and sometimes debuffs that are essential to your spec. So it's really anything that would normally show up on your buff section over here. And it's broken down into either icons or a bar section. So you can move the abilities between the 2 to visualize them how you want. Along with the organization of the sections, we can now add and remove items from each area. So you don't want to track that cooldown? Great, remove it. It's as easy as moving it from the active section over to the not displayed section. Or is that ability actually a utility cooldown instead of an essential cooldown? Great, you can just move it over to the utility cooldown and it shows up in the new area. And lastly, you can rearrange the abilities so they flow better for you, right? So using an Unholy DK as an example, we're going to have a look at the essential cooldowns. This includes abilities that don't technically have a cooldown, like Festering Strike and Clawing Shadow. Those are actually tied to resources, but they're important for me to track because I want to know if I can actually use them yet. So I want those to show up first. And then for my abilities that have a longer cooldown, like Abomination and Apocalypse, those I want to move over to the right. So it's as easy as just dragging these over to where you want them to show up. And then you can rearrange the columns on the bars to show however you'd like. For me, I have all of my resource abilities on the first bar. I have all of my long timed cooldowns on the second bar. So now they show in an order that makes sense for me. While Blizzard did say that there was audio and profile settings coming, they weren't available on the PTR when I tested this. So I'm going to be making another video when those get released to do a deep dive into that. So final thoughts, I think that these improvements are much needed, and I like how easy it is just to kind of drag things where you want. But there are still things that are missing, especially from a tracking perspective. So for example, on the DK, I want to see my plague up time. which is a debuff on the target, kind of like festering wounds. But it's not an option to be tracked. Since it's something that impacts my play rotation, I want to be able to track it. So for the time being, I still need to track this using a weak aura. For the bars, there's no dynamic flow. So let me explain. If you have your bars always showing, it's not a big deal, right? For me personally, though, I only want to see the bar if it's active. Otherwise, for me, it's just a distraction. So I check hide when inactive. And so when the bars do show when I've used the ability, you see a gap from the inactive bars. What I would like to see here is some kind of dynamic active bars float to the top kind of thing or something. If you're a casual or even a semi-hardcore player who hates add-on clutter, I think the updates to the Cooldown Manager are a huge win. But if you're rating Mythic or pushing high keys, Weak Aura still has way too much depth to ignore. So what do you think? Is the Cooldown Manager finally worth using, or is Weak Aura going to reign forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever missed a defensive cooldown and blamed lag, smash that like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more War Within and Midnight deep dives.